Welcome back, everybody. Well, our guest today is a comedian, radio host, and author. Frank DeCaro is probably best known for being a movie critic on The Daily Show when it first started. Then he went on to have a great radio show on SiriusXM, and now he's a published author. His latest book is called Disco, Music, Movies, and the Mania Under the Mirror Ball. It talks about the song styles and truly the incredible pop culture impact from the 70s. Audience, give it up for Frank. Hi, Frank.
Hey, it's so great to be with you.
Frank, it is so good to have you. How you doing, friend?
I'm good. I'm in Las Vegas in a disco-themed room. The sign on the back wall says, "Follow the call of the disco ball." At the MGM Grand, they have these disco-themed rooms. So I'm there. And I saw the disco show last night, which was so good it made me want to cry. It's an immersive salute and history of the disco movement.
Oh.
And then we saw Earth, Wind, and Fire this weekend.
Oh,
so I've been immersed in disco, and I ate disco fries, which are they're like Parkway poutine. You know, they're French fries with brown gravy and cheese curds. So I ate disco fries. So it's been my disco weekend in Las Vegas and back to LA today. So.
Well, inappropriate. Tell me, what started you down the rabbit hole, my friend, of wanting to do a book about or just disco in general? Where did this start?
Well, I did a book in 2019 about the history of drag in show business. And people, when I was doing interviews, said, you're really shining a light on something that deserves more respect and more, it's flowers. You know, it needs to be given its flowers. Even though everyone thinks they know drag, what they really know is RuPaul's Drag Race and not the entire history of it. So I did that. And then when I was done with that and it was well received, I started thinking, well, what could I do that I love that also deserves to be looked at with more respect? And disco just kind of seemed to be in the air, particularly during COVID, of all things. None of us could go out, and yet we turned to disco the way we always do in times of trouble and listened to this upbeat, amazing empowerment music. And I thought, I'm on the right track here. And that was how it happened. And then one thing led to another. And well, one village person led to another, actually. And then, and I did this book. And so it's really fun when you're talking to like the original Native American, Felipe Rose. And he's like, oh, you got to call Gloria. And Gloria means Gloria Gaynor. And so he's like, here's her number, call her. And then you call Gloria Gaynor and you talk to her. And then someone else is like, hey, you know, Corey Day from Dr. Buzzard's original Saban band. Remember Cherchez La Femme? Yeah. Oh, she's my friend. Here's her number. And so that was how it all worked. And one person led me to the next. And thank heaven for YouTube, because my God, there's a lot of disco content you can consume. And I did.
Frank, you're like me. We're both pop culture nuts. What was it like? I mean, you've done a lot. I mean, hello, you've met everybody. But you're on the phone with Gloria Gaynor. I mean, what's that call like?
Well, she was one of my favorite people because it was that, Gloria said, just call her. And you want a celebrity who's that trusting.
Yeah.
You know, because usually it can be jump through these 11 hoops that are on fire and then maybe they'll talk to you, you know?
Yeah.
And when you have a celebrity who is, you know, of that iconic status and they say, oh yeah, just call her. And she was great. France Jolie was great. You know, it's Denny Terrio from Dance Fever.
Dance Fever! Frank, Dance Fever! I can hear Dance Fever. I can hear the theme.
Okay, add to my disco weekend. The woman who was the talent booker on Dance Fever was at breakfast yesterday. So
of course she was.
Yeah.
Frank, of course she was. Okay. Okay, we have just a little bit in this segment. We'll come back. What is a nugget for the youngins watching the show right now? It's a big question, but what is a nugget about disco that you think that young people just do not know about that era?
I think the most important thing, and this book proves it, believe me, is that disco was as all encompassing and all influencing as hip hop has been for the last 20 years. For those last 3 or 4 or 5 years of the 70s, the second half of the 70s, everything was disco flavored. It influenced what we wore, what we watched on television, the movies that we went to, whether we were getting dressed up to go to nightlife, out for nightlife, where we were going, and disco flourished everywhere. And you could go, every hotel ballroom was being turned into a disco. They'd add a new sound system, or they would, put in a lighted floor, and suddenly you could have Studio 54 in Milwaukee, and people did, and everyone went, and there were even teen discos. I was just a little bit too young to say go to Studio 54 and see Grace Jones like that, but I would have liked it, but I wasn't cool enough to get in on a fake ID at 15 years old. So I would go to the teen disco, and I picture this. Just go with me on this. I had permed hair, a mustache, and aviator glasses that were very dark brown at the top and very clear at the bottom. That gradient.
Frank.
Yes. It was a little bit of Father Guido Sarducci from Saturday Night Live. Yes, it was kind of that. But at 15.
Yeah.
And so I would go. It was a place called the Strawberry Patch in Wayne, New Jersey, and I would go behind. It was behind the DMV, and you'd go and you'd disco on Sunday afternoons, and then your father would come and pick you up and embarrass you. So.
We have more. Stay right there, Frank. We've got to take a quick break. Darn TV. We'll be right back. Back in a moment, everybody.
Let's make it.
Welcome back, everybody. More with Frank. We'll tell you how to get the book in just a little bit. Frank, we were all just talking in the break. I mean, really remembering what an influence disco had. Let's talk about the end, though. I mean, because it, as quickly as it came in, girl, it ended like on a random Wednesday. Am I right?
Yes and no. Because we all think it began the moment we saw Saturday Night Fever. We all wanted to, I always said you either wanted to be John Travolta in that movie or be with John Travolta in that movie, or sometimes both. But people think it started then, which was kind of mid to late 70s. Actually, disco began brewing in about 1970, and in clubs in Soho in New York, and in these private parties, and that was how it sort of began. And so by the time Disco Demolition Night is what you're referring to at Comiskey Park in Chicago, which was in July of 1979, and it was a radio promotion, and this shock jock blew up records by black artists. And they want to say it was disco music, but it wasn't all disco music. Anyone who was there will tell you it really was music by black artists. And he wasn't wrong about being excluded about disco, because for the first time, the people on the pop charts were people of color, people from the queer community, and very strong women. And straight white guys kind of were left out in the cold. And so no wonder they got mad. I mean, I get it. I don't condone what they did, but I get it. Because it wasn't about them. And they had to suddenly go to the gym and buy fancy clothes and smell really good. And that was it kind of made them, they had to up their game. So no wonder they were mad. But the Disco Demolition Night did have a chilling effect. But I think that what we've learned is that one of the reasons it had a chilling effect was that the people telling the story were not the disco lovers. They were rock journalists who were generally straight white men who were dying for disco to die because it wasn't about them. So they were the ones telling the story. And so they didn't tell us, oh, well, house music began almost immediately after. And house music was basically the disco before disco was commercialized. It was the disco of the early 70s, was kind of the sound, but with new technology. So that was going, and no one told us that just because disco died in America, the Village People movie was considered a huge flop, Can't Stop the Music. And I loved it so much because it had its own ice cream flavor, Can't Stop the Nuts. So It did at Baskin Robbins, and they sold us gay ice cream, and so that was a lot for 1980. You know,
that's a lot.
So
it's a lot right now, Frank. It's a lot. Yeah.
But so anyway, they didn't tell us that movie was a huge hit in Australia. They didn't tell us that that the Village People would have their biggest hit in Italy in like 1980 or 81.
Yeah.
So there were Europe. It never died. ABBA just kept going and going and going. And no one really told us that disco never died. And it didn't. It just didn't dominate the pop charts.
Yeah.
But it morphed into new wave music.
Yep.
And you know, which was disco for depressed people. So it was.
Frank, hold that thought. More with Frank. We'll be right back. Back in a moment, everybody. More with Frank. Frank, we were talking in the break, too. We have a mutual friend, the great Melissa Peterman. Yeah. Right? I know. You just want to hug that woman, don't you?
I have. I love her so much. Oh, my God, look at us. Yes, I am crazy about her.
She's the best, isn't she?
Yeah, she is so generous and kind and loving, and also one of the funniest, best performers you could ever possibly imagine. I love her.
Frank, when you look back at your time when we were, the producers were putting together this segment, I was looking back at some of your movie reviews on The Daily Show, and oh damn, you're so damn funny. Your Exorcist review, I was laughing. Anyway, when you think of your time on The Daily Show, what pops into your mind?
It was honestly, I am not a glory days person. I am not someone who says, "Oh, remember the glory days," because I always think they haven't happened yet, that they're still coming. I'm very forward. Look, for someone who writes books about the past, I'm very forward. But when I think about The Daily Show, I was surrounded by some of the smartest, funniest people to ever work in comedy, and it was an honor to be, taken out of the journalism world and put into the entertainment world, with this amazing show. And we got away with stuff early on because no one, at the time, in the beginning, no one was watching The Daily Show. So we could say things that were awful. And if you watch clips from later in my run, I was there 6.5 years. Near the end, when I started doing it, the last 3.5 years, I did it by myself. And, we used to do a Siskel Ebert routine in the beginning, but by the end, it was just me. And we said awful things then. My favorite ever thing we ever did, and it's the dumbest joke. It was the review was of Moulin Rouge, and there's Nicole Kidman footage of her on the swing. She's flying around, the Moulin Rouge thing, and you hear me in voiceovers say, Nicole Kidman is a singing, dancing prostitute who wants to be taken seriously as an actress. And then you cut back to me and I said, oh, I'm sorry, she plays a singing, dancing prostitute who wants to be taken seriously as an actress.
Like, and if you did that now, like, you could never do that now. Yeah.
But isn't that a good joke? It's terrible.
Yeah, it's so terrible, stupid. But yeah.
But it's
God.
a joke.
Now,
we never talked about people we didn't love. It was done with love. It was mean and evil, but it was done with love.
Yeah.
So
it's out of all the before we run out of time, again, as I said, you've met literally everyone. Out of all like the greats, like the divas, like Cher and Bet and Elton, what sticks out in your mind there? Like who was just great for any variety of reasons?
You mentioned all three of those, and I met all of them like within the period of a year, and I thought to myself, I never have to go out again. I've met my 3 childhood idols, and I should just stay home, and that's it. And I got a picture with Cher, and I was at my thinnest. I had gone on a diet, and I'd lost almost 100 pounds, and I was real skinny, and then I met Cher. So there's a picture of me thin on the mantelpiece with me and Cher and my husband, and it is the great. I waited my whole life. I would starve again for a picture that good. Okay, yeah. I would.
Frank, I'll end. I met her in 2000. She was here campaigning for Al Gore. And Frank, you'll love this. I made our photographer stop at my apartment to get my laser disc of mermaids. And no, Frank, and I walked up to her and I asked a typical question. I got that out of the way and I go, okay, Cher, could you please sign my laser disc? And she goes, what movie? And I go, Mermaids. And Frank, she slapped my cheek and she goes, of course it's Mermaids. Yeah, she could smell the gay from like 2 cities away, but yeah.
Yes. We pray to her. Oh, I had dinner with Dolly Parton too. If I'm going to really throw them all out, I did. Years ago at the Hotel Pierre in New York, I wrote the first gay. Don't drop your pen. I wrote. It was the first gay cover of her gay magazine that she ever did an interview with, and it was for Out magazine, the cover. And so I had dinner at the Hotel. I ate foie gras off Dolly Parton's plate. We don't eat foie gras anymore because it's mean. And,
yeah.
And,
Frank,
it's delicious.
Thank you for your time, buddy. Please come back.
This has been a joy. I wonder if are we cousins or something? Because sensibility-wise,
I think we're cousins. Yes, we are. Yes. Audience, give it up for Frank, everybody. Be sure to pick up a copy of his disco book. We'll put a link on all of our socials. We'll be right back, everybody. Back in a moment. Oh, that was great.